Now, my problem is that after hearing all these great speakers, I'm not quite sure what I can say, because they're all great. But let me just say this. We are assembled together to make sure that in this consequential election, together we are going to defeat the most dangerous president in the modern history of this country. We are going to defeat Trump because the American people, no matter what their political views may be, understand we cannot have a pathological liar in the White House. They understand we cannot have a president who is running a corrupt administration, a president who has apparently never read the Constitution of the United States, a president who thinks that he is above the law, a president who is a bully and a vindictive person. This guy can't even get along with the people he appoints, let alone the rest of the world. Now, Donald Trump may not be a great believer in democracy, but he is going to learn what democracy is about in November when we throw him out of office. Now, Trump is not only a liar, he is a fraud. This is a guy who came to Michigan in 2016 and he said, you know, folks, I am going to provide health care to everybody. Remember that? He lied. Instead of providing health care to everybody, he tried to throw 32 million people off the health care that they have and do away with the protections for people who have pre-existing conditions. Trump said his tax plan would not benefit billionaires like himself. He lied. 83% of the benefits over a 10-year period go to the top 1%. And Trump said, oh, he was a different type of Republican. He will never cut Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. He lied. Look at his last several budgets, massive cuts to Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security. Now, to defeat Trump, we are going to need the largest voter turnout in the history of our country. We are going to need a campaign of energy and excitement. And as I look at the thousands of people here tonight, we are the campaign of energy and excitement. We are the campaign that will bring working class people who have given up on the political process back into the polling booths. We are the campaign that will significantly increase voter turnout in the general election among young people. We are the campaign that will create the largest voter turnout in history, the campaign that will defeat Donald Trump. When this Democratic primary process began way back when, there were 20 candidates who were competing. Today, we are down to 2. And let me just say this. What I am absolutely convinced of, and know to be a fact, is that all of those 20 candidates, including Joe Biden and myself, are pledged to support the winner of the Democratic primary process. Joe Biden has said, if I win, he will support me. I have said that if Biden wins, I will support him. Because all of us know that while we have differences, and I'm going to talk a little bit about those differences tonight, that at the end of the day, we come together to defeat Trump. And let me tell you why I think our campaign is the strongest campaign to defeat Trump. And basically, I believe that you cannot defeat Trump through the same old, tired politics of yesteryear. It is hard to create energy and enthusiasm when Joe Biden's campaign has received funding from over 60 billionaires in this country. It is hard to defeat Trump when Joe Biden has a super PAC funded by the very wealthy. And the reason for that is that people instinctively understand. You don't need to have a PhD in political science. People understand that you're not going to stand up for the working class and the middle class when you are dependent upon contributions from the wealthiest people in this country. So our campaign is quite different. We don't have a super PAC. We don't want a super PAC. I don't go to Wall Street to beg for money. I don't go to rich people's homes to beg for money. We have in our campaign, and everybody here should be proud of this, we have received more campaign contributions, 9 million contributions, from more Americans, 2 million Americans, than any campaign in the history of the United States of America. Our contributions comes from working class people. They come from teachers. They come from factory workers. As somebody who grew up in a working class family who lived in a rent-controlled apartment my entire youth, I am proud to tell you that this is a campaign of the working class, by the working class, and for the working class. Now, I am a senator, so I have a huge ego, and I am flattered by all the sounds and the support. But let me be very clear, as I've said throughout day one, This campaign is not about Bernie, it is about you, and you, it's about us. This campaign is not just your traditional political campaign, vote for me and I'm going to save the world. That's not what this campaign is about. Because we understand that real change in America never takes place from the top on down, always the bottom on up. This is us, not me. We are in this together. But when we talk about the differences with my friend Joe Biden, and he is my friend, I think it's important for the people of Michigan and the people of America to know the difference in our records. Joe has been around for a while, and I've been around for a while. How do we differ? What's our records? Who stood up when the going was tough? That was just a rhetorical question. I didn't expect an answer, but let me start off. Way back under George W. Bush and Dick Cheney, they told us that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction, that we had to go in and invade Iraq. I never believed a word they said. And I did everything that I could to prevent the U.S. invasion of Iraq, which turned out to be the worst foreign policy blunder in the modern history of our country. I opposed that war. Joe Biden voted for that war. Joe Biden and I have a very different record on an issue of great importance to the people of Michigan, the Midwest, and in fact, the whole country. I saw trade agreements like NAFTA and PNTR with China as attacks on the working class of this country. I did not believe then, and I do not believe now, that American workers should be forced to compete against people in Mexico and in China who are earning starvation wages. I helped lead the opposition to NAFTA and PNTR with China, which have cost us over 4 million good-paying jobs in this country. And that includes 150,000 jobs here in Michigan, 160,000 jobs in Pennsylvania, and 100,000 jobs in Wisconsin. Now, if we are going to defeat Trump in Michigan, in Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, it will be very hard for a candidate who voted for these disastrous trade agreements. "12 years ago, as some of you will remember, the crooks, and I use that word advisedly, on Wall Street, through their recklessness, through their illegal behavior, nearly destroyed our economy." You all remember that? Great Recession. And after these guys nearly destroyed our economy, they came running to the Congress and they said, "Oh, please bail us out." I voted against the Wall Street bailout. Joe Biden voted for the Wall Street bailout. There was a bankruptcy bill that was supported by the credit card companies. And boy, we can talk about what a bunch of rip-off artists the credit card industry is today. We got millions of people paying 20, 25% interest rates on their credit cards, which is nothing less than usury. Usury, that's what they're charging us. And anyhow, they wanted this bankruptcy bill, which would make it harder for working class people to get out of debt, including young people with student debt. I strongly opposed that bill. Joe Biden voted for that bill. Today, as all of you know, the women of our country are under unprecedented political assault. And by the way, let me say to the men who are here, if there was ever a moment that we men have got to stand with the women, this is that moment. We understand that the Trump administration, state governments all over the country, and the Supreme Court are working feverishly to deny the women of this country the right to control their own bodies. And I have to say that on this issue, the right of women to control their own bodies, Joe Biden has. That's right. On this issue, Joe Biden has not been consistent and, in fact, has not had a good record. 2 years after Roe v. Wade was decided, Senator Biden said this, and I quote, "I don't like the Supreme Court decision on abortion. I think it went too far. I don't think that a woman has the sole right to say what should happen to her body." Further, Joe repeatedly voted for the Hyde Amendment, which denies low-income women access to Medicaid funds in order to determine their own reproductive decisions. At this moment in history, at this very dangerous moment for a women's right to control their own bodies, I think we need a candidate that can be trusted on this issue. I am proud to tell you I have a 100% pro-choice voting record. And it is no different with regard to our brothers and sisters in the gay community. Today, thank God it is relatively easy to be a champion of gay rights. But as some of you know, some of the older folks here know, that was not the case 25 years ago. 25 years ago, if you stood up for gay rights, you took a political risk. At that time, some 25 years ago, I stood with the LGBT community on a very difficult vote, and that was on a bill brought forth by right-wing Republicans called the so-called Defense of Marriage Act. And what the right-wing Republicans were saying is that the only form of marriage that essentially could be recognized was between a man and a woman. 25 years ago, I voted against that bill. Because I believe then and I believe now that people have a right to marry whoever they want, regardless of their gender. Joe Biden voted for that bill. We are going to win this campaign, and we're going to win here in Michigan. Because the people of this state and of this country are sick and tired of an economy and a government that works for the 1%. They want an economy that works for working families. They want a president who has the guts to take on Wall Street and not just take their money. They want a president who's going to take on the greed of the pharmaceutical industry, who charge us by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. They want a president who will take on the insurance companies and the fossil fuel industry. And we're going to win here in Michigan and defeat Trump because we know that a $7.25 minimum wage is a starvation wage. We're going to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. We believe that women should not make 80 cents on the dollar compared to men. Equal pay for equal work. And in a state like Michigan, which has such a strong history of trade union activity, we believe that workers around this country who want to join unions should be able to do so. And that is why we have a proposal that will double trade union membership over the next 4 years. We are going to create millions of good-paying union jobs by rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure. And that includes rebuilding our water systems in America. Whether it is Flint, Michigan, or any place else, I don't want Americans turning on their water tap and seeing toxic, poisonous water coming out of it. And we're going to win this election because we're changing national priorities and putting education at the top of the list. Instead of giving tax breaks to billionaires, we're going to invest in our kids and in education. And that means universal, high-quality, affordable child care for every family in America. It means tripling funding for low-income Title I public school districts. And because we believe in education, we believe in teachers. And to all the young people who are here, I plead with you, give thought to becoming a teacher. We need great teachers. We need more African American teachers. We need more Latino teachers. We need more special education teachers. And that is why We are going to fight to make sure that no teacher in America earns less than $60,000 a year. And when we talk about education, we believe that we must make public colleges and universities tuition-free. "12 years ago, Congress bailed out Wall Street. 2 years ago, Trump and his friends gave $1 trillion in tax breaks to the 1% in large corporations. Well, if they could do that for their rich campaign contributors, we can cancel all student debt in America. We're going to win this election because we believe that it is time to end the international embarrassment of the United States being the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all people. We believe that health care is a human right, not a privilege. We believe that every American, regardless of income, should be able to go to the doctor and the hospital whenever they need to. We believe that the United States should not be paying by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. Some of you may remember that a number of months ago I was here in Detroit with a group of diabetics, and we took a trip to Windsor, Ontario to buy insulin. And this is how insane and rigged the healthcare system is. We went a few miles into Windsor, Ontario. We bought the same exact insulin from the same company for 1/10 the price charged here in Michigan. So tonight we say to the drug companies, you will stop ripping off the American people. Last year, despite the fact that we are paying twice as much per person on health care as the people of any other country, $11,000 for every man, woman, and child, 87 million Americans were uninsured or underinsured. At least, minimum, 30,000 people died last year because they didn't get to a doctor when they should because they didn't have insurance. If you can believe it, 500,000 people went bankrupt because of medically related bills. Meanwhile, the healthcare industry last year made $100 billion in profits. So tonight we say loudly and proudly that the function of a humane and rational healthcare system is to provide quality care to all, not to make huge profits for the healthcare industry. And whether the industry likes it or not, we will pass a Medicare for all single-payer program. And when we talk about issues that this country has got to deal with, we are going to bring major, major reform to a broken and racist criminal justice system. This is America. We should not have more people in jail than any other country on earth. And those people are disproportionately African American, Latino, and Native American. Together, we're going to invest in our young people, in jobs and education. Not more jails, not more incarceration. Tonight, there are 400,000 people in jail who have not been convicted of anything. Do you know that? They were arrested, they were charged with a crime, but they weren't convicted. They are in jail for the crime of being poor. They can't afford cash bail. We're going to end cash bail in America. We are going to end private prisons and detention centers. And we are going to end the destructive war on drugs. Turns out, as some of you know, there are some things that a president can do by executive order. There are some things that need legislation. Just turns out that by executive order, we can legalize marijuana in every state in this country. And that is exactly what I intend to do. Let me ask you all a question. How many people here know somebody who has been arrested for possession of marijuana? That is why we are going to move to expunge the records of those arrested for possession of marijuana. At the end of the day, we do not want to be the country that has over 2 million people in jail, where we're spending $80 billion a year locking up fellow Americans. It costs less money to send somebody to the University of Michigan than to lock them up. Let's send them to the University of Michigan. And when we talk about systems that are broken and racist, we are going to bring major, major change to the immigration system in this country. I am the proud son of an immigrant. My father came to this country from Poland at the age, all right, came to this country from Poland at the age of 17 without a penny in his pocket, couldn't speak a word of English, and had very limited education. I have some familiarity with the immigrant experience. On day one, we end the demonization of the immigrant community in America. On day one, we will restore the legal status of the 1.8 million young people eligible for the DACA program. On day one, we begin to change our border policy so that we will never again have federal agents snatching babies from the arms of their mothers. The American people want comprehensive immigration reform, and that is what we will deliver on. Together, we will pass comprehensive immigration reform and a path towards citizenship for the undocumented. because that is the right thing to do, and that is what the American people want us to do. All of us, whether we're Democrats, Republicans, Independents, Conservatives, Progressives, whatever we are appalled and horrified by the level of gun violence in this country. And my promise to you is that we will pass the most far-reaching gun safety legislation ever presented in the history of this country. Donald Trump and the Republican leadership are scared to death of the NRA. Our administration will not be intimidated by the NRA. We will pass universal background checks. We will end the gun show loophole. And we will do what the American people want, and that is to end the sale and distribution of assault weapons in this country. You know, as a senator, I hear a lot of speeches on the floor of the Senate from some conservative Republican senators. And that's a pretty painful experience. And their mantra is, as you know, they believe in small government. They believe in getting the government off the backs of the American people. That's what they say. But I say to those hypocrites, if you believe in getting the government off the backs of the American people, then you got to understand that it is women who will control their own bodies, not the government. So my promise to you is I will never nominate anyone to the Supreme Court or the federal bench who is not 100% pro Roe v. Wade. We will move to codify, put into law, Roe v. Wade. Trump and his friends want to make massive cuts to Planned Parenthood. Well, we got some bad news for them. We're going to expand funding for Planned Parenthood. So here we are tonight, a few days in front of the Michigan primary. And I'm here tonight to ask for your support. And I'm asking you, because part of what the political revolution is about is changing political culture in America. I know that many of you have friends who think that politics is bullshit, they don't vote, right? And you told them that you went to a Bernie Sanders rally tonight and they think you're crazy, right? Right. You could have been home doing something productive like watching TV, but here you are. And it is important to start talking to your friends and say, you know what? Stop complaining about high rents. Stop complaining about low wages. Stop complaining about racism and sexism and homophobia. Stop complaining about climate change. Because if we do not get our act together in terms of climate change, the planet we're going to be leaving, our kids and future generations will be increasingly uninhabitable. And tell your friends to stop moaning and groaning about student debt. Tell them that you're tired of hearing them complaining, that instead of complaining, they got to stand up, fight back, and get involved in the political process. This campaign is not just a political campaign, it is a movement of millions of people. Trump and his friends, in a very calculated way, think they can win re-election by dividing our people up based on the color of their skin, based on where they were born, based on their religion, based on their sexual orientation. But we got a secret for Trump. It ain't gonna work, Donald. You're trying to divide us up. Our campaign is gonna bring us together. Black and white and Latino, Native American, Asian American, gay and straight, we're gonna stand together. We're sick and tired of the hatred and the bigotry coming out of Washington. So what the political revolution is about is creating an economy and a government that represents the needs of working families all over this country. It is about taking on Wall Street and the insurance companies and the drug companies and the fossil fuel industry. It is about taking on the military-industrial complex and the prison-industrial complex. But here is the truth. No president can do it alone. We need millions of people to be involved in the political process, fighting for justice. All of you know that is the history of how real change takes place in America. It's the history of the labor movement. It's the history of the civil rights movement. It's the history of the women's movement. It's the history of the gay rights movement. It's the history of the environmental movement. That is how change takes place. When people look around them and say to the billionaire class, sorry, the status quo is not working for me. We want decent wages. We want to expand Social Security, not cut it. We want to make sure that every kid in this country has the opportunity to get a great education. We understand and will fight to make sure that health care is a human right, not a privilege. We will tell the fossil fuel industry that their short-term profits are not more important than the future of this country and the world. So that's what this campaign is about, not complicated. We are bringing people together. Now, as a United States Senator, I am more than aware of the power of the 1%. And let me be very honest with you, because I deal with these people every day. They have unlimited amounts of money. They own the media. They are the people who buy and sell politicians. They determine whether jobs stay in Michigan or go to Mexico or China. These people have enormous power, and they have created, over the last 50 years, more income and wealth inequality in America than we have seen in 100 years. They have created an economy where 3 people now own more wealth than the bottom half of American society. They have created an economy where billionaires are trying to elect the next president. I don't have a PhD in economics. I don't have a PhD in math. But this I do know, that at the end of the day, 99% is a hell of a bigger number than 1%. So our job now is to stand together around an agenda which works for all of us, not just the 1%. Our job now is to win the primary on Tuesday here in Michigan. Our job is to win the Democratic nomination. Our job is to defeat Donald Trump. And our job is to transform this country so that we have a government that respects and fights for ordinary people, not just the wealthy. Thank you all very much.